Thanks to everyone today for coming out on this gorgeous day to hear Jennifer Russell read from Backlit. Jennifer's originally from Bantry, and she's lived abroad in the US and the UK, and her career has been in healthcare. And I think after reading Backlit, that really comes across. There's great patience and sort of quietness to the work, and there's also a lot of darkness in the work, sort of disturbances and unpredictabilities you imagine in the healthcare industry. It came out in January with Hen Women Press, and there's a lot of themes around moving as well. So you've lived in two different continents, the US and UK. They're not continents, sorry, the heat is going to my head. They may as well be at the moment, but yeah, and there's a great, I've moved around a bit as well, and there's a great sort of sensitivity in the work around fitting in and sticking out, and that balance comes before the other places, which kind of feels like it also could be called other people, you know. Jennifer lives in Beira now, so a little down the road, and she established Hungry Hill Writing Collective or organisation. So I'm an editor as well, so I know the creative energy, dense energy that goes into being a writer and being someone who supports other people's writing, and she does that with a lot of finesse and a lot of professionalism. And I know she's absolutely sort of very well respected across the West for that. Yeah, so without further ado, she'll be reading from Backlit and also some newer poems. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for coming. Yes, as Sarah said, thank you, Sarah. I was born here in this small town, baptised in the church across the road here, as was my son, who's here today. Later, some years later, was also baptised across the road there, and then spent quite a long time wandering around the place, and came back here to this area 15 years ago. I'm very happy to do so. And so this first poem is about that experience, and we were at a poetry thing recently where there was an English poet who said, I don't have time to write a sestina, so she writes a rushtina. And this is, I have two small children, she said, I don't have time for that sort of thing. So this is a sort of sestina, and it's the title page poem, and it's called Backlit. It came with the hard wire, programmed with these shapes. There were other beaches, but not this sea, this place, this left space. Solid as rock, long bias could not water down. I got to a place where I could not see the tall white Rockies, nor the string of west coast islands wired together by calm ferries crossing water, all shaping my children, hot wiring them to feel and see the rocky outcrops, their place, a stretched Pacific Sea, not cramped around a small watery island, but taking the shape of new worlds. I came back to this small rock. Water streams down its surface most of the year, making shapes of the riverbeds, heading west to the sea. Returning is as dangerous as barbed wire. It places a demand to be happy, or at least shape up, and make a life not watered down. I place long roots in the soil, wire up a program, and see if I can make it work. Thank you. And the next short poem is the only poem I've ever had a fan letter for. We were the others. We were the others, whose parents had no Irish. We went to different schools, did not bless ourselves in buses, lived in two big houses, farmed on hopelessly, kept the gates shut in bad times, reminded them that Emmet, Tone, Parnell were ours. We were the others till we went away, then we found we were them. The next poem is about other places, and it's about sitting here, you know, in January thinking, oh, goodness, it's a long winter. So, other places. Each March, when it's hard to remember there are other seasons, I make, or want to make, a journey to somewhere else. Sunday newspapers by the fire tell of plays and exhibitions I must see if I'm ever going to have a new idea again. Doubt sets in at the first airport. Toothpaste and moisturizer pilfered as if ticking bombs. Waiting, I search for a place to shelter, like a sheep on a winter hill preparing for night. Abroad is more abroad than remembered. Accents more foreign, cars newer, roads bigger. I think of being in the same place as all these people, all with the same purpose for this hour. I will not meet anyone I know here, so will not have to be polite. But if I fall, nobody will rush to me calling my name. Nobody has to be polite, and they're not. It's not really a surprise that the play is a treatise on bankers and the exhibition a collection of videos of leaves floating on rivers with explanatory notes about the journey of life. Journey of life being like a river, and the soul a floating leaf, etc. Like a clove clamped on a toothache. It's distracting, but I still have to face the dentist. The next little group of poems is about family and family issues. And there's nothing a poet likes better than family issues. Capital F, capital I. Okay. The first poem is largely about my mother, who lived here to be 99 and died just a few years ago. In the company of friends. 1. After the stroke, the shock travels down phone lines and across feuds, warns of hymns and graveyards. Then this time, pulls back. Not this time. Not yet. I walk by the lake again. The steady beat of my feet. Water is picked up and thrown. A cormorant has lost its way. Her heart ticks on somehow. Hands have lost their flow. She asked me who she is and if I would take her home. The season is running out. Leaves are ripped and spread. Summer holds its breath. It has nothing more to say. 2. After you die, I stroke your hair. I would not have dared before. It's become softer than I knew, has lost its fierce spring. We were said to be alike because of colour, but mine was always less certain, more subject to mood. I consider washing you, but no, you would not like that. Your hair was the closest we would get. 3. I'm worried that my car, sorry, not that my hair nor my car are involved here. I'm worried that my dress is a bit frivolous, though it's black enough. The old canon is ready for the occasion, his Cork voice strong in the cold church. Cold in April, her birth month. The coffin is wheeled down the aisle, no unsteady shouldering for my brothers, too Catholic, too rural. I've been invited not to speak of her, or God forbid to read a poem. The instructions are specific. The canon must fill in the pause. He imagines tennis parties and riding amidst the long slog of her life. We sing the hymn I dislike most with a Sunday school doggerel. We were well trained in these pews. At the graveside, 3 clergy wince in sudden hail under black umbrellas and oddly fashionable cloaks. I think she will enjoy the view from here in the company of friends. Thank you. I'm looking at Hazel, who knew my mother before I did. She hates me. An oil slick has been released. No bird can fly, no fish swim. The water is turgid with angst. There is no detergent for this. I hear there are techniques, and try them all. Lay protective booms around, watch my words. The oil finds its way into every fault line, travels down phone lines along mail routes. Years from now, lying on a beach, reading a book, smiling at the sun, I might pick up a stone to skim, and the tar will still be there. Irish writers love talking about drink. So, this is my drink one. That's called distillation. If there's drink in the family, it gets diluted in the end. Maybe he wasn't as bad as they remembered. It's an illness, they say. And are we all not doing well? But 1 or 2 of the brothers might have a bit of the same thing, all right? Look, let's not go on about it. If there's writing in the family, the past is like a fortified wine, condensed, bottled, stored, brought out in the evenings to be sipped and savoured, passed around at public tastings. What if I would only remember the time he showed me the robin's nest, not the public drunken scenes. The time he drove me to church when I was 14, telling me all about nihilism. After I told him his drinking made me wish I was dead. And 2 more in the family section. Take heart. This is called parenting. He used to park on the hill across the street from the bar. So steep it was scored to prevent backsliding. He would give me instructions. Don't let off the handbrake. Don't tell your mother. Don't talk to dangerous men. I would sit for long waiting minutes and wonder, which is the handbrake? Don't tell my mother what? Which man is more dangerous than he? Then he would start the car, slur off down the hill. I would join in when he sang. It was safer that way. The saddle room. The bridle lean against the shedding whitewash, stiff now that the polishing has stopped. Saddles straddle a wooden horse. Each one has a remembered owner. He lifts the child onto the smallest one, the old retainer, riding stories falling from his wet mouth, his abrading hands on her 6-year-old thighs. Afterwards, the tea he made on the stove was comfort, though she was not usually allowed tea. Okay, some years ago, Bernard O'Donoghue, the great Cork poet, was giving us a talk, and he said to me, "Do you write political poems?" And I said, "Oh no, I keep away from that." And he said, "But that's a poet's responsibility, to witness." So I have now become obsessed by writing political poems. And the editor of this collection felt there were too many, so she limited what I was allowed put in. And also the poetry competition we run every year, our group, an international competition, is called Poets Meet Politics. And so those of you who write, please enter next year. So the first poem is called Goat Song, and it inspired, at least I saw this painting by the Irish painter Elizabeth McGill, and I liked the fact that it had a goat in it, and so this poem is all about America. It might be a little bit about the UK. I loved that place once, its loud confidence, like the goat I once saw standing on a bucket in the middle of a field in Crete. Like you, he proclaimed himself, driven to the highest point by instinct, finding the best food. His feet notoriously certain, ready to butt and bite or let out his goat bleat. It all seemed well intentioned then. At least we knew what was what. What made him think that the bucket was for him? That the 12 plastic inches were his platform, the world his to command? Now bleat and beard have menace, cloven hooves more cloven. Drones often miss their target, but that's okay. Like death row, you can't get it right every time. In the Greek language, goat song means tragedy. The next two poems are going to be read by Godfrey. Offred.
Trucks and pyramids. Dead boys lie in streets, strangely relaxed. Mothers wail and are trying to comfort the thin bodies. These boys will not be buried with jewels or a cat. There will be no anointing, no wrapping up with bandages. Coffins will be pulled from the backs of trucks. Fathers will beat their chests in an exuberance of grief. On the news, there will be warnings of flash photography. War paint. I spread new paper on the table, arrange the paints, turn on the gas fire. I like the click of it and the matches. The radio is on. A man in a hospital says, "They have taken all the blood." I dip my brush in the red, spread it on. I can afford to be generous. They are shooting people in the airport. I add yellow, then metal grey. No blue. Surely there is no blue in those skies. People are running over the border. Black, maybe, for the uniforms, trucks, suitcases. I'm running out of colours. Gaddafi says he will die on Libyan soil. I try to draw an airplane, but I am not good at machinery. It looks like a bird that has caught fire. Now I look for the colour of tears.
We're different heights. Yes. Thanks very much. the editor of this collection was brilliant. She made them into much better poems by having go through every single line and say, well, do you need a comma there? Oh, well, I don't think so. So anyway, this poem she wouldn't include. She said it was too depressing. So I'm going to read it. It's called Mná Quainche, which in the Irish language means keening woman, women, and Ban Quainche means a keening woman. The wind has fallen back over the sea, leaving only trembling. There is a hush over the fields. Somewhere a bus is blown up. The body of the Ban Quainche is spread around. Bits of her stick to the tops of frozen cars. It'll take a pressure hose to remove them. She took 16 people with her, and the 40 who knew them. Acting under orders, they said. Freedom fighter, they said. No worse than drones, they said. Muslims, they said. God's will, they said. They've lost count in Iraq. The air is thick with keening. We, them, we, them, we, them. The ideology, two-step under the strobe light. The keeners stay in their kitchens. We are losing the sound from Guantanamo Bay. The sigh of the silent is a long, small one. I must prick up my ears, tune into the Syrian camps. A woman is sitting inside a tent. It's snowing in Zatari. Is my husband alive? Ahmed is 10 and the man of the family. She sends him out to play football. She remembers she used to sit in cafes and talk to friends about seizing the day and making it count. She holds on to this day with trembling hands and tries to stay alive. I take up my shift at keening. No, Quainche, raise your voices. You, them, you, them, you, them. The wind comes up again. I'm trembling. This is much more organised than I usually am. I've got an actual list. Okay, the next few songs are about relationships, starting with a poem called The Chiseler. In the early days, he was pleased with the feel of wet clay, was invited by its potential under his smoothing fingers. But the clay gave way too easily. He brought home fettling knives, steel trimmers, hooks, pin tools, a spout knife, satisfied by their precision. Later, he invested in marble, drew an outline in chalk. She would be almost as tall as he, would not need arms. He held the chisel against a block and struck it with his new hammer, a chip at a time. She started to become his. He entered in a competition, but though admired, she was not shortlisted. He worked harder, chipping on through the nights, wanting more from her, till a day came when he noticed she was powder under his boots. Treasure hidden in the heart of summer. This is a quote from an American poet I admire very much called Robert Hass. This memory keeps coming to me. I'm on an island in the San Juans, reading the bell jar in sparse holiday homes. My marriage is starting to fail. It's August, hot and dry. My children are storing up the feel and sound of the bucking boat dock. They're putting out a crab pot. I go for a walk up a track that I've not taken before. The grass is pale and losing its sap. A garter snake spreads itself in the dust. I kneel to take in its detail. Then there's a sound like a bellows urging a fire into life. It's getting louder, and I walk towards it. Finally, I reach the source. It's a huge balloon with a basket and machinery to make it lift. It bucks against the tether with the desire to float. Okay, another thing that poets like is a good metaphor, and or even a bad one. This poem is called The House of Metaphors. In the last house we shared, the foundations were being eroded by the tide. I mean it literally, it's not a metaphor. At low tide, I would walk under the rooms, our empty rooms, probing anxiously the 100-year-old stilts, wondering how much was barnacle, how much was hardwood. That could be a metaphor. At high tide, I would sit on the sea wall waiting for the family of otters with their 2 human hands hammering evening suppers of oysters. They still ate together. My children went out rowing, lifting phosphorescence with each dip. They knew to leave before I did. Sunsets crowded the sky, the colours caused by arsenic in the air. Now that is a metaphor. Now this poem is dedicated to my friend Isabel, who she and I have been friends since we were both 19. And I think it speaks for itself. I hope it speaks for itself. There, it comes in 2 parts. The sculptor and I take a 4-day walk. The sculptor and I walk the granite city. She's a bit chemo brain. Words have to be chiseled out. We talk of the 3 years she has left from the 5 predicted by the chemo god. We polish the old stories, marbled with use. The one about the boyfriend we once shared. Chasing down death, she's kept enough energy to go on hating her mother. It's an art form, this anger. We walk through the glen to the art gallery. She lets her knowing hand consider a bronze. Art does not make it pitted and fierce like that, she said. Life does that. We part at the top of the Waverley Steps. These days we must hang on to the railings. Part 2. Life has moved on, and about 6 weeks ago I went to Vancouver to meet up with the sculptor. The sculptor and I have a 4-hour talk. Now she propels a walker. Morphine shuffles her words and her feet. She counts down the days. She will decide when enough is too much. We talk of husbands and son. She tells me, "Dinny fash hen," when I ask if she's tired. We stand on a bridge and look into a river. Don't expect me to resort to metaphor, she says. She buys cake and can't eat it. We joke, yes we joke, and then we can cry. They set off back to the hospice. Her arm, pale as marble, waves through the car window. I stand alone at the side of the road. And then just a couple of sort of landscape sort of poems. And this poem comes from a recent poetry exercise where you get 5 words and you have to make a poem with it. And the words are usually utterly impossible to use. So one of the words in this was preponderance. And Gottfried and I do a lot of gardening, and we are losing the fight really with deer, hare, wind, etc. And they win. But you know, who can deny a deer a rosebud, really? A preponderance of deer. There's no beer involved here. Wine, yes, but no beer.
Hair keeps away the deer.
Oh, thank you.
And other predators like you maybe get from the zoo or dog hair and things like that.
Hair, that's what we need. There's hare with A-R-E involved as well.
Not that.
The hare now lope quietly across the fields, then burst into spring's speed. They rule the day shift. Deer gather at night like teenagers looking for trouble. They scarf the bark of young trees, ready them for felling. Their mouths sweet with rose leaves, they take flight across the hedges, fabulous now with green. At the refugee centre, a man tells me he dreams of antelope, gazelle, impala. He wakes smiling. But he's very grateful, he reassures me. Okay, I think I've run past my time allowed, so I'm going to read. I'm skipping the rest of the nature poems, but they're in the collection. And just 2 poems finally about writing. And again, writers are always talking about writing. And I'm a devout fan of famous Seamus, and this poem is a tribute to him, but it's after Allen Ginsberg, who wrote a wonderful poem about a supermarket in California where he used to crawl around trying to pick up men during the night shift. And this is a supermarket in County Derry. I'm not making any aspersions about Seamus. I am stalking you, Seamus Heaney, as you look over the potatoes, turnips, cabbage, now shipped in from here and there, innocent of local soil or the spading of your father. You are not surprised to find pomegranates, Nobel laureates travel. But do you miss the modesty of vegetables in a wooden box on a concrete floor? You walk the polished lanes, smile at old neighbours, take down the tin of carrots, silver it with your imagination. I leave you there to go home to my desk, lean into your lines, fork over the soil in search of my own. And finally, the writing table. It's at the window of a smallish room, bleach floorboards, sea view desirable. It must be warm, though a certain pressure to gather wood in the morning gives rhythm. Eggs, tea, a fish some days, crumpets with butter melting in the holes. 1 cup, 1 plate, 1 pan, a bed in the corner with a light, the sweet triangle, bed to stove to desk. There I can smooth my hand along the grain to find the words. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was gorgeous. We're just opening to the floor. I just have 1 or 2 questions first, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you a sec to breathe. It's a bit warm in here. Yeah, so this is your first collection. I know that's something a lot of people have a lot of anxiety around, and you mentioned your editor once or twice. Could you tell us a little bit about how that was, and in terms of the time and the relationship with your editor, and any advice for people who are working towards that?
Well, I mean, she's just brilliant. She has a small publishing house in Cumbria, and I sent her some poems because I didn't know she only took she only commissions. And so she wrote back and said, sorry, but I only invite poets that I invite. You can't just talk to me. You can't just write to me. Then she said, well, anyway, just send me a few poems. And then so she came back to me and said, send me 30 poems. And so then she then said she was happy to publish me, and so it's been great. It's really wonderful. But she is very meticulous editor, and that was very, very good. It's a wonderful thing to have, is a meticulous editor, and so she's fantastic. She's, I think, in her 80s now, and still churning out collection after collection from people she finds that she likes.
Thank you. And you mentioned, we can clap again. You mentioned famous Seamus. There's a lot of facing up to things in your poems. I love the line about the dentist, particularly. It's probably the most excruciating head pain that we volunteer for. But yeah, in terms of, I love puns. So yeah, who are your kind of care team in terms of, besides Seamus, who are people who helped you get closer to what you wanted to say? And it doesn't have to just be authors, like any genre.
Yeah, I think I started with Sylvia Plath. She was the first poet that really I thought, oh, it's okay to write about ordinary things. And I haven't known that before. And those of us who were educated in the 50s as I was, we read the classics, though I loved it at the time. I'm not objecting to the classics, obviously, but she was the first poet I read who thought and made me think that, okay, I can write about anything. I write about my children or the garden or whatever I want. And so I found that very helpful.
Thank you so much. And congratulations on that. And we open it to the floor. There's a lot of themes came up, a lot of ripe for questions. So anybody would like to ask a question to Jennifer?
You read a poem that you said the editor would not let you put into the book, said it was too depressing.
Yes. It is depressing.
Well, I found it very moving.
Yeah, thank you.
So I just wondered, how is it for you as the creator to have a kind of rule of stop from having it in the book? I know you can read it at readings, but not to have it in the book. I think I would, be too rebellious and stamp my foot and say, no, I want it in there.
We made a compromise. She would have preferred that I had no political poems, but we compromised. But she put them in the middle of the collection, so they weren't up front. However, when you get to my age, you're so grateful to be published. I'll tell you what, you'll agree to most things.
Yes, okay.
And also, there's another. I can have another collection hopefully, and then I will have more control over what goes into it.
You go to town.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yourself first.
I'm impressed by the brevity. The poems are extremely rich, but mostly quite short and simple. Is that a process? Are they longer and then become shorter, or is that your natural voice?
Well, Bernard O'Donoghue says he's doomed to be brief, and I regularly thinking I really should write long poems because serious poets are like long poems. And I'll start off with a couple of pages, and then I'll start, taking the line out, and then it stands out, and then I'm down to, 24 lines. And when I count, sometimes when you enter competitions, there's so many lines you're allowed, and virtually all my poems are about 24 lines. So that's when I run out of speed, I think.
Yeah.
Think, okay, that's all I have to say on that subject.
We'll just go in order, clockwise. If anyone needs a mic, just say.
I was just curious. It seemed like every one of your poems had a brilliant last line. And do you think of your last line first, or does it just come naturally out of what the poem is saying, and then you get that aha moment at the end? Like, it seems like every one of your poems ends with something that's a takeaway.
Thank you. I think that I'm more likely to have the first line first.
Okay.
And then when the last line comes to me, I think that poem, I've done all I can with it. I mean, it may take many more edits than it will, but once I've written that last line, I think that's it.
That's it.
Yeah,
You can tell that
Yeah,
that's
yes.
your ending is perfect.
yeah, thank you. Hello.
Hello, Jennifer. Congratulations on a fabulous reading.
Thank you so
Everybody
much.
will agree here that was an absolutely fabulous reading and a lovely first collection. So what's next?
Oh,
Are you
well,
ready for the
I have a lot of unfinished projects. One is I'm about halfway through a novel, and I keep saying to Godfrey, you know, why am I doing this? It's not my form, blah, 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 blah. I'd be better off, my main phrase is I'd be better off cleaning the windows, at least there'd be something useful at the end of it. And so he's heard that now for 25 years about the cleaning the windows line. And also I have written one play that's been performed, and I have another one sort of finished. And so I like that form, I like the play form. But, you know, those sort of things are just so hard to get staged or published or anything else. And, you know, I'm not going to live forever. And the poetry, the thing about poetry is it is the essence of an idea. And also, you know, you get it over quicker. You know, it's just, okay, I've been really annoyed about this all week. I can get it down, I can work through it within a week and have it as ready as it's going to be for me.
Would your family be upset at all about things that have been said, and if so, how do you deal with that?
Well, I have two brothers who live in the area. One would have been here today, and he's read the poetry already, and he wouldn't be upset. One hasn't turned up, so that may so that may tell you something. I can't think about that, and I have and also the thing about writing is you make it up, and so you have an idea and you expand on the idea. And we probably all remember in Ireland a few years ago, somebody wrote a novel, and her brother threatened to sue, said it wasn't like that, and so on and so forth. Well, and the publisher withdrew it and had insisted that she changed contents of the book. But I just feel that within a family, everyone has a different experience and a different reaction to an experience, but also some of it is fiction, you know. It didn't happen like that. I know it didn't happen like that. And so, if they're upset, I'm sorry.
Is there any other questions?
You mentioned that you have the competition, and you mentioned next year's competition.
Yes.
Is this an annual political?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what are the dates? You must
Hungry Hill Writing is the website.
Yes. So I
And
can find it.
yeah, you can find it online.
Thank you very much.
That's great. So we'll leave some time for signing. So is there any questions left? I thought they were really good questions. Thank you. Yeah, we've time for one more, and then if you'd like Jennifer to sign back too, she's available to do that. Yeah, thank you.
You said you were born here and you were educated here, so would you like just to say something briefly about your work life and how that fed into your writing, or when did you begin writing?
I went to school in Dublin. First of all in St Luke's in Cork National School, and then I went to school in Dublin, and then I trained as a nurse in Edinburgh. We're all leaving Ireland then, and then I worked both in England, in London, in the US, in Cornwall, and I write very now I teach very part-time now in UCC in Cork, but I write very little about my working life. And I don't know why. I do some, but very little.
That's great. Thanks, Jennifer, so much.
I want to thank Sarah Byrne and to point out the journal that she edits over there, the Wall Review, which is a wonderful journal. I really commend it to you. And thank the bookshop for allowing us to have this lovely event, and the organisers of the festival, and Godfrey for reading.